All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to episode 560, Talking Buffalo podcast, part of the Blue Air Network. I'm your host, Patrick Moran. Thank you for locking in. It is Tuesday. Well, it depends, I guess, on if you're listening to this or watching this. We're recording this Monday afternoon. As always, I'm joined by my good friend, writer, podcaster, social media personality, Joe Yerdon, man. What's going on? How you doing?
I'm doing great, Pat. Doing great. It's been a good week. Got some traveling in, did some driving, burned actual holes in my, well, not actual holes, but like wore my feet out so that they're still sore now. So yeah, lots of stuff. We'll get into it, but yeah, it's been fun. It's been a good time lately.
That's cool, man. By the way, for people, again, we're taping this Monday, so if you're out celebrating it, happy Dingus Day to everyone. So you didn't grow up in Buffalo, Joe?
No,
Is Dingus Day a thing where you grew up?
Absolutely not.
No,
no. There's a pretty sizable Polish population in and around Albany area. But Dingus Day was never really a thing. I mean, we had a pretty wide swath of cultures around the area. Like there's a big Greek population in Albany. One of my best buddies, his folks like came over from Greece, so like it got to see some of that experience. Big Italian influence, a lot of Irish, a lot of some German. There's plenty of Polish. I mean, there's some Polish in my family, but not enough so that we had any kind of traditions. My family's we're too mutt-like. I think I say that in the nicest way that I can, where it's the background is. There's a lot of European background in the family, but it wasn't anything where it was like, we were part of like the Polish church or anything. So, but yeah, we knew a lot of Polish stuff, but we didn't have Dingus Day. There was no kinds of that stuff around the area. Certainly not to any kind of degree that Buffalo does it.
All right. Spending 5 years in Florida, one of my favorite things would be around this time where it would be Dingus Day. I'd ask people in Florida and almost no one heard of it. And I got to be honest with you, man. I mean, I'm old and I grew up in the West Side in the, late 70s. I can remember some, and then definitely in the 80s. And on the West Side, anyway, Dingus Day was not a thing. Now, I grew up in a, primarily a pretty diverse neighborhood, a lot of very Italian back in those days. Some Irish, I'm Irish, obviously. Blacks, a lot of Puerto Ricans. It was a very diverse neighborhood to some extent. It still is, but maybe it just wasn't a large Polish population on the West Side, I guess is where I'm getting at. And as a result, like I was never exposed to it, and I had never heard of it. In fact, to be quite honest with you, man, it's probably been maybe in the last 15 to 20 years or so where I even had heard of it. And I'm like, well, this is kind of new. At least it was to me. Turns out that it's not, though. I mean, I've talked to people who have been celebrating this, people who are my age, and they've been talking about celebrating this since they were teenagers with their families, going, Lovejoy and Kaisertown. I mean, it's all over now. Now it's such a big part of Buffalo. I mean, every bar has some kind of Dingus Day party going on right now. But even, back in the day where it was more Polish prominent neighborhoods is where they would have these parades and stuff. And it's really cool. I want to play a clip as kind of evidence that this has been around for a while. Somebody on Twitter sent it to me. I don't have the person's name to thank them. But anyway, Irv Weinstein, legend at Channel 7. This has got it. I don't know what year this is from, but I'm imagining this is somewhere in the early 80s with Irv Weinstein. And this is a clip where they were talking about Dingus Day. Let me pull it up here. Make sure I don't screw this up, and I'm going to play this for you. Kind of entertaining here. Let me press play here. We'll listen.
Well, our very own merrymaker, Mike Randall, is joining the fun going on right now at the Chopin Singing Society. Mike?
Happy Dingus Day to you, Irv. Look, folks, it's kind of loud here, but if you're not celebrating Dingus Day, you're not going to believe what you're missing.
It's tradition. Well, actually, it's a Buffalo tradition, too, because the only other come from just about everywhere.
Oh, yeah!
Richmond, Virginia, Rhode Island,
Dunkirk,
And no matter where they come from, they're all here for a very good reason.
I don't know. Get a little bit excited, get drunk in a celebration.
Celebration is the key word. These days, most folks celebrate Dingus by eating, drinking, dancing, kissing, more drinking, more dancing, a lot more kissing, and it's all topped off with more dancing, drinking, and kissing.
What's a dingus? Dingus is right here. See? You hit all the girls, boom, boom, like that. That's a big dingus. That's a big dingus. Right. Okay, makes sense to me.
It was back in the 16th century when all this Dingus Day business started. It was a time when a young man would smack a young maiden with a pussy willow to get her attention. That's about the same way the Three Stooges got their start. There's one small thing to remember. You might want to get a good look at your maiden before you start to dingus.
Did you bring your dingus with you today?
No, I didn't, but I'm sure I'm going to try to find one along the way. An extra one. There should be an extra one laying around here somewhere.
Mark, I noticed there's no little fuzzy things on your pussy willow. What happened to them all?
They got whacked off.
Really? This stick's seen a lot of action then, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Dorothy, it looks like your Easter basket blew up on your head. What is that?
At about 3 o'clock, it's going to start up, and the chicks are going to come out, and we're going to be chirp, chirp, chirp.
Sure they are. Sure they are. Folks, you don't have to wear a funny hat. You don't have to have a pussy willow. You don't even have to be Polish. All you have to do is come down to the Chopin Singing Society and celebrate Dingus Day. And if you do, you may find out what Vashwego Alleluia means. I'm not going to tell you. This is Mike Randall with the Channel 7 Live. Back to you, Irv.
Okay, Mike.
Well, yeah, man, this has been around for quite a while. Pussy willows,
Man, oh man.
boys smacking girls to get their attention. Not sure how that flies nowadays. Man,
Yeah.
but,
Oh, well, I mean, there's the squirt gun thing now too that I hear
Yeah.
about that, where it's the girls fight back with the squirt guns, which, hey, good idea. Boy, the double entendres in that, and watching back on it, it's like that's from the 80s. Everybody's got a stash, so it's like that's kind of like how it is now. The trucker hats are everywhere. It's kind of how it is now. And just everything that everybody says is just can be taken in a completely different direction.
oh yeah, for sure.
It just cracks me up, and it feels like it feels like the kind of story that when it was Mike Randall was doing, he was like, dude, I'll take this assignment, I will run with it. I can't wait to get loaded while I'm doing this story and just
More
going to town
dancing, more
with it. Yeah,
kissing, more drinking.
that's about as perfect a video as you can
Yeah, I really
people.
I love looking at old school news videos from, that's got to be 30 to maybe more 40,
Yeah.
40 years ago.
Mhm.
Yeah, so anyway, as you can see, it was certainly popular back then. I think it's spread a lot more, in
Yeah.
recent years. Maybe with the power of social media has brought more
Power of drinking.
attention to it. I'll tell you a real quick story, and then we're going to get into some sports talk here. But so I bartended for a long time, and I'll never forget this. One time I got asked to bartend at a Dingus Day party. I don't remember where it was. It was somewhere in Cheektowaga, though. I lasted less than a half hour. Just couldn't do it. It was crazy.
Wow.
So busy. The squirting of the water guns all over the place. The pussy willows, the polka music, which is, look,
Mhm.
I love and respect all heritages and cultures. There's things to love about all of them. Not a big polka fan, though. I'm not gonna lie to you, Joe Yerdon here, man. It's tough for me to listen to. But anyway,
Listen, the polka thing's funny because I like accidentally learned about it because of Weird Al Yankovic, because he like his history of getting into music was like polka and accordion playing and all that stuff. And you learn about a guy's history like that. It's like, how does this guy get into a career of like making, parody songs and whatever? And it's like, no, you got to start doing like accordion work and polkas and nonsense, because his dad was a big polka accordionist, I guess, back in the day. It's funny.
I'll tell you now, again, St. Patrick's Day is something that's popular all over the globe. In Buffalo, people can make a very reasonable argument that at least in Buffalo, in the city of Western New York, Dingus Day now is just as big as St. Patrick's Day, with the people that go out
Yeah.
and celebrate it. In fact,
Mhm.
my cousin and I, we argue. We had that relationship where we literally bicker and fight about literally everything.
Yeah.
And he was making a case to me that Dingus Day is actually more fun and better than St. Patrick's Day. And this is what he said. I'm going to read his text. He goes, on Dingus Day, you can get a 48 ounce beers for $5. I like that.
That's
They
good
set
stuff.
up shuttle buses all around the city to different parties so people don't drink and drive. That is true. In fact, I got family going out as we're taping this on Monday, that are taking shuttles to places, so you don't have to worry about driving. Polish food is better than corned beef and cabbage and potatoes. Don't know about that. That's up for opinion here. Polka dancing is fun. The weather's always better because it does happen the day after Easter. So typically you're talking about a full month of Buffalo weather, which can make a difference. And the parade, not just bagpipes, it's more fun for the kids. Anyway, apples to oranges. They're all fun. It's just it's really cool to live in a city that takes something like Dingus Day where other people have never even heard of it, and it's such a big deal here.
Yeah.
That it's not. I ain't going out. I can't do it. You and I are doing a podcast here on Monday, but I do look forward on Twitter and Facebook. A lot of the photos and videos, it just looks like it's such a fun time. So good for them, man.
Yeah, it's something else because I for me, like St. Patrick's Day is cool. I've always liked St. Patrick's Day, not just from the adult years on. I always liked it beforehand as a kid because it's the leprechauns and 4-leaf clovers and shamrock shakes and stuff like that from McDonald's. Like that was always cool.
I love Irish music too. By the way.
Yeah, I have. Yes, same. Very much in the same boat there. But like Dingus Day, like not learning about it. One of my friends, my friend Tom is Polish. His folks are from Poland, and he and his family invited me over one year for Polish Easter dinner, which I didn't know was a thing. So I go over there, and his folks are making like it's all Polish food, and I never really had like a Polish dinner before. I didn't know what went into it. I knew pierogies, I knew glumkis and all that stuff, but like the full thing, man, it is. There's so much food. They split up dinner into 2 parts. Like you do, like you have like your appetizer hour, kind of like you're just hanging around, drinking or whatever. And then they're like, oh yeah, dinner time. Sit down for dinner. You got all this wild food around there, and it's like, oh wow, that was really good, great dinner. And then you go, you kind of like lounge a little bit more, hang out and talk. And they're like, all right, dinner. We're like, I'm sorry, I thought we had dinner. Like, no, there's more dinner. And I go, more. Should I have saved room? And they're like, no, probably should have, but you didn't. So like there's that. So it's so much food, man. And like I think I had more kielbasa in that day than I ever had, and it was like like family homemade stuff. So it's really good. But there are some dishes, man, that are just like, whew, you want to try everything because you want to do that, and he had like a lot of his family around there. They're also from Poland, and there was this thing that is affectionately called meat jello, where it's like this clear gelatinous stuff, and it's got like I think it's beef or lamb, and it's got vegetables in it, and you're looking at this thing and you're like, is that normal? And they're like, oh, we have this all the time. It's like the kind of one of the standard things. And I'm like, how do you eat it? Is it like jello? And I think it was one of his cousins used like vinegar to pour over it, and it's just kind of like melted away. And I'm like, I can't do this, guys. I'm really sorry. I want to try it, but I'm like, I'm looking at this, like everything about it is just like the visually unappealing part of it. But supposedly it's good, but it was a really tough, still is a very tough sell for me.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, man, any holiday where food is involved is always a good thing. And like I said, any celebration where people are out having a good time, and using Mike Randall's words back from the 80s, kissing and dancing and drinking is always a good time. So anyone out there who's celebrating Dingus Day as we tape this, hope you're having a good time. You had a good time last week. Want to hit on this because you kind of mixed some business with pleasure.
Yeah.
The Sabres played in Detroit last Thursday night, and you kind of made you made a nice little trip. You made an event out of it. Joe went to, so let me make sure I got this right now. And you could, and I want to hear a little bit about each of these, because I've never been to an NBA game in my entire life. Any team. I've never actually watched an NBA game in my whole life, believe it or not. Anyway, so you went to Detroit, and on Wednesday night, you caught an NBA game, the Detroit Pistons game.
Yep.
Then on Thursday afternoon, you caught the Detroit Tigers season home opener, which I would imagine was really cool. And then later that night, the Sabres played the Detroit Red Wings in just an absolutely nail-biting, fascinating hockey game. So much fun to watch. And we're going to talk plenty about the Sabres here in just a few minutes. But talk about that trip, man. Talk about some of the things in Detroit and going to these games. I think that's really cool to be able to do all that on a one trip like that.
Yeah, it was kind of cool that the schedule worked out that way because the Pistons game was their home finale, and they're the worst team in the NBA this season, and we got a pretty good look at why. Because the Brooklyn Nets, they were playing that night. The Nets almost scored 50 points in the first quarter. They were up 47 something or other with like a minute and 20 to go, and they kept missing threes because, well, I mean, that's the league, but also they wanted to hit 50 in a quarter, which I don't blame them. I'd be doing the same thing. Just huck up a three, hit 50, everybody starts dancing. That's great. But yeah, so we hit that up. We did a little tour of the city, hitting up some of the haunts that myself and some of my buddies have checked out in the past and in past visits. And for all of us, it had been a while since we'd been to Detroit. For me, it had been since 2014. I don't know how long it's been for a couple of those guys. None of them made the any of the trips to see the Bills last season, this past season, when the Bills decided to rent a condo out for the week in the city. But it was my first chance to check out the new arena in Detroit, though, Little Caesars Arena. This was a brand new building. They've gutted it. They demolished Joe Louis Arena, which was, always a great place to see a game. That place was beautiful, except, built in like 1979, opened in 1980. So it was time. It's time to change things up. And this, oh my God, man, you walk in there and it's a lot of Detroit sports history when you walk in. Like the gate that we went in through, it had the old Olympia. The Olympia was like the original arena in downtown Detroit, where the Red Wings played there like 30s, 40s, 50s, like back. We're talking way back. The entrance had the original, and we were told this, has the original letters from the outside of the Olympia building right there on the wall, all lit up. They wired it like how it had to be wired back in the day. Everything is just like total throwback. So you've got that greeting you as you walk in, and it's like, okay, that's cool. And then you've got like pictures of you got a lot of the statues that came over from Joe Louis Arena that they had on the concourse. It's Ted Lindsay, Gordie Howe, Sid Abel, Alex Del Vecchio, like all of them. They're just kind of like placed around the concourse. The number of food and drink options you've got, on the main floor is insane. Like there's a handful of bars. You can eat in there too. Like I guess it's a bar restaurant, I suppose. But like 2, 3, or 4 of those around the bottom, and there's like another 2 up on the upper level, which I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this here. All right. It's the concourses are spacious. It's beautiful inside. It is an absolutely gorgeous facility. You get inside the bowl, and it's there's not a bad seat in the whole place. They have all the banners, the Pistons and Red Wings banners are hanging up all over the place. Retired numbers, championship banners, all that stuff. It's all up there, and they can raise and lower them as need be. Because we got to see them lower the banners right before the start of the Sabres game, because I looked up and I go, "Oh, the banners, what's going on there?" They lower them for the games to just kind of like add a little bit of intimidation. Maybe that's an intimidation factor. Just look up and you're like, "Oh, geez, okay, yeah, Yzerman, all right, Gordie Howe, okay, this is Nick Lidstrom, okay," and it's an incredible thing going from KeyBank Center and some of the other arenas that I've been to more recently and going to this one. I mean, this one just opened up 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
It's really night and day between this and
dude. It's
and
like you don't want to go back. You don't want to go back, but it also gives you an idea of it gives you a lot of ideas of like things that they should do. Like they're kind of limited what they can do because they're not building a new place. Like that's just not happening,
right?
And they're not going to fix up the place until the football stadium's finished, and then we'll see what happens then. But we sat in the upper level for the Pistons game, and the seats uncomfortable. It was kind of narrow seating. I got a big tank ass, so like that plays part of it too. But it's kind of compact up there. It's cozy, but like you go to sit down and like you kind of have to like angle yourself in so you fit, like you're wedging yourself into the seat. And you're like, all right, okay. But downstairs, the entire 100 level, all the seats are padded. padded, cozy, big, comfortable. Holy cow, man! I could have taken a nap. Watching morning skate from down at that level, I sit down and I go, oh yeah, this is the stuff, buddy. This is the good stuff. So yeah, if you spend the money to sit in lower level for any of the games or events there, you're doing it right. But
Was it low energy? The fans with Pistons. I mean, they're out of it.
Yeah.
If
Oh,
anything, they're trying to get trying to win the lottery right now. How was the energy for an NBA game? Again, I've never been to one.
Yeah, it was a lot different. Just because the team is bad. It was fan appreciation night, so there's a lot. People are getting like posters and all kinds of stuff like that. But it was, they wore the '90s teal uniforms, the flaming horse head stuff.
Okay.
Like that was kind of cool to see those in action. As opposed to classic red and blue Piston stuff. But the it was cool, but like everybody's just kind of like, yeah, they suck. You got people sitting around us that were just kind of like heckling, not like out loud, like shouting down to the floor, but just sitting around, just like talking to their friends and just being like, man, this guy's bum, can't do it. Like, look at this guy taking a shot. Oh, this guy's getting blocked by the point guard. Like, come on, man. Like, this is bad. But it's it's tough to get a gauge on the fans when it's like they were literally the worst team in the NBA this year.
Yeah, they're gonna have the best odds of winning the lottery, and this is a big lottery too, a big NBA lottery this year too.
If they get Wembayama, holy smokes! Like there's a couple of guys that can play on that team, but it's still incomplete. And like the guy they drafted first overall last year was injured.
Cunningham.
Cunningham. Yeah, he was out hurt, so it's like you're not really getting that good a feel. Like it's a bad team anyways, and then you take away the best, one of the best.
Though, just the experience of being in the arena and going to the game. Then that's your first time in that arena.
Yeah, and let me tell you, man, like everybody seems to bitch about the scoreboard, KeyBank Center, dude. The keyboard, the scoreboard in Detroit is unreal. It is massive. It is a giant like video board type thing. Like it's like what they got in Denver and Tampa and places like that. But it's huge. But like it doesn't get in the way, which is really interesting because you'd think like you'd lose parts of the floor. Like you're looking down, watching basketball's a smaller surface than hockey. Like you think you lose something of it because the board would be in the way. Like hockey, I'm above even like the top level for the press seating, and I'm looking down. I'm like, I'm gonna miss some of the stuff. Now you miss part of the bench because you're not like that's unavoidable. You're up that high, like the angle's just not going to be good. But you don't lose any of like the actual game action part of the floor with this board. And if you did, look up. And you're gonna see everything because they run it up on the screen and you're good to go there. It's a spoiling kind of thing where you get a look at like what the others have and you're like, dude, why don't we have this? Like, why don't we have one of these things in Buffalo? Why don't we have comfortable seats, or why don't we have a massive scoreboard? You can't do much about the concourses and like having restaurants in the whole place or whatever, but like there was art and photos everywhere of just past, present Pistons players, Red Wings players, all over the place. Like it was, you knew who you're there to see, and you knew who ran the building and who was there. And I know that's not something that's even around KeyBank Center. Like you don't see pictures and displays of anything of current players anywhere. And I know it can be tough to do that because guys, it's been kind of a turnstile here lately, but man, oh man, it's a phenomenal building, which I mean, for $900 million in public money, it better be.
Right now, so you go to an NBA game on Wednesday night, you get up early, you go to the Detroit Tigers home opener. What was that by? There's nothing better to me than when you're a baseball fan, opening day, because you always have that optimism and that hope. Well, maybe not quite every team, but a lot of teams do. You have that optimism. This could be the year where everything comes together. These young guys step up, these veterans, fill holes, and they play well, and our team's going to be competitive. You always have that optimistic point of view early on. So opening day, how was that? What was the weather like too, as well on opening day? Because I remember, I didn't look it up, but I do remember there were some games weather was causing rainouts and stuff, and I thought of you. I'm like, man, I really hope that would suck if Joe's in Detroit and the Tigers game gets postponed, the opener, but
Yeah.
it didn't. So what was the weather like, and what was that experience like?
It was a little on the cool side. It was still sunny with clouds. I don't think we saw like any blue sky, but like it was bright. It was a pretty bright day. There was a little bit of wind. We're sitting up in the 300s, so it's a little brisk up there.
Who did they play?
They played Boston.
Boston, that's right.
So yeah, I couldn't avoid the Red Sox, unfortunately, but it was really interesting being there because opening, I guess the home opener in Detroit, and I'm not a Tigers fan, so I don't know these things. Home opener in Detroit is like, it's a big deal. It is a very big deal there that it's like something where the city comes together. Everybody, if whether you're a super fan or you're a just kind of a casual fan, everybody's got some Tiger shirts or jerseys, and everybody's got hats. They're breaking all of them out to either go to the game or hang out. Like people were tailgating outside ahead of the game. Lots of folks with the back hatches of the trucks open. They got grills. The smell of sausage and peppers everywhere was incredible. I can tell you that much. But it was a ton of people. Like it was, I forget what the attendance was listed. It was like 41,000, 42,000 maybe. Big crowd, really big crowd. And like Tigers stink. Like, they got out early, the bullpen melted down and gave up a lead very quickly in like the 5th or 6th inning. And, Tigers lose. So like, it's kind of standard operating procedure for Detroit baseball.
Yeah, they're 2-7. I had to look it up as you were talking.
Yeah.
They're off to a pretty shitty start, 2-7.
Yeah,
so optimism quickly gone.
Oh yeah, I don't even know how much the optimism was there to start the season. To be real, there's a couple of guys that might be good, like
Riley Green.
Riley Green's pretty good.
Torkelson.
Spencer Torkelson's another one where people are high on him. So like, I think like a guy like him got brought up really quick, and it was like, all right, buddy, you're our hope. And it's like, all right, well, I'm like still stupid young, so give me some time to adapt here. But it's a cool stadium though. There's a lot of history stuff for a new place, and Comerica Park's pretty new. But lots of reverence for the team's history, which you have to. You've got a team that's been around since like what, the 1930s, 20s, 30s, something like that. You have to have that. So lots of stuff about, Al Kaline, Charlie Gehringer, Hank Greenberg, all over the park. Really cool to see stuff like that. Like baseball history stuff will get me like going on that. So it was very neat to see that, Ty Cobb stuff too. Like it's everywhere. And
I've never been to the new park. I was at Tiger Stadium, but it was before it opened in 2000.
I'm jealous of that because Tiger Stadium would have been very cool to see. But yeah, it's a nice park. I was there once before, but it was for the Red Wings Maple Leafs alumni game during the Winter Classic. When the Winter Classic was at Michigan Stadium in Ann Arbor, they had an alumni game there, which was nuts. Think of all the people from Red Wings and Maple Leafs history that you could put out on the ice at some point. That was really cool. And then you're talking, I'm in media, so I'm talking to guys after the game, and you walk in the Red Wings room, which was the Tigers, it was the Tigers dressing room, but you're walking around and like there's Steve Yzerman, oh, there's Nick Lidstrom, oh, there's Sergei Fedorov, oh, okay, that's cool. Slava Fetisov's here, all right, Igor Larionov's here, like, okay, oh, there's Red Kelly, okay, Mark Howe's here, like it's just name after name after name after name, guys that are in the Hall of Fame or guys that will be in the Hall of Fame, like just awesome to see that. And it's not like the Leafs brought a bunch of bums. Like it was, you're getting your Wendell Clarks and your Daryl Sittlers, and I think Rick Vive was there too. So it's lots of guys and lots of names. But to see a baseball stadium with a hockey game going on, it's cool, but it's not the same. It is a totally different vibe. The weather is better in baseball, and just the buzz of a stadium when it's a baseball game is so different. Just because like you get close to the park and you're just kind of like, all right, it's baseball time. All right.
Yeah.
Like there's a certain vibe to the place when there's a game going on, especially early in the season when it's, people are still kind of like, oh, let's see what they do this year. Not in the middle of August when it's like, Jesus, they're 40 games out. Like this team stinks, you're doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a nice joint, man. It's worth going to check out. And like, if you've got a favorite team that's not the Tigers, chances are you're going to be able to get tickets pretty easily. For us, we had to pay a lot for these because it's
opening day.
The opening day, and it's the one day that's in demand. Like it's the one day, like like I said, all the non-diehards just want to show up and see the team and be like, yeah, we were there, cool, and then they take off, and the diehards are left behind. Boy, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? That sounds very.
It definitely does, man. You know, I'm rediscovering my love for baseball. It's kind of fallen off for me the last couple of years. But I'm really, it's early, you know, only like 10 days or so into the season, but I'm really locked in, man. I'm following teams, although I did not know. In fact, I tweeted about this on Monday. I did not realize Tampa's 9-0. You pointed out they haven't really played anybody yet. I think they got Boston this week. So they're going to start playing some, you know, better competition. But yeah, man, I'm pretty locked into to baseball. All right, so now you go to the game. And again, this is you just having fun and being a fan. And you got to kind of switch to work mode. So I don't know, man. Going to a baseball game is a pretty big deal. Going to a hockey game is a pretty big deal. And you're doing both literally in the same day. So but you shot over right from the park to back to the arena. I mean, you didn't really have a lot of time, did you, to really kind of go from, all right, I'm having fun chilling mode to, oh shit, man, you know, I get some work done here. I'm here for a reason as well.
So we stayed at a hotel that was a little closer to where the river is, where you can look across and you see Windsor, like you see the big Caesar's Palace Casino across the way, and you're like, oh, yep, there's Canada, it's right there. So we stayed there, and it was, I forget what the distance was walking wise, but it was not a long walk whatsoever from there to go up to the stadium and the arena, because the stadium and the arena are maybe a couple blocks apart. Like it's
really?
It's real close.
Okay.
So like I was walking everywhere. Because the day we left Wednesday morning, and it was, you know, we were going to be driving through like pouring rain. It was going to be, you know, water everywhere. So I wore boots. I didn't bring another pair of shoes with me. Stupid. Don't do that. Because I walked in these boots everywhere and my feet got tore up, like just absolutely tore up. So learn from me, wear some good shoes that you like walking in, because it wasn't going to cut it for a few days, because I did a lot of walking from the hotel. Like we walked from the hotel up to the arena for the Pistons game, and then we walked around downtown, going checking out, we had pizza at Buddy's Pizza, which is a must go. Have to go to Buddy's Pizza when you go to Detroit. Checked out, went to a handful of bars afterwards. It's all walkable. It's all very walkable. And I know people get spooked out because it's Detroit. Dude, downtown Detroit is like walking around downtown Buffalo. It's like you'll walk around and be like, where is everybody? And it's like, no, everybody's holed up in the bars downtown. So
right.
So it's a lot like that. But like that day, the day of the Tigers game, mind you, I was going to Sabres morning skate before that. So that was at 11:30.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So I start there, do all that stuff. Couldn't bring my computer with me because MLB bag policy. My computer bag is like 3 times the size of what's allowed at a baseball stadium. So I was like, well, forget it. I'm not bringing that. Which if there was breaking news, I would have been totally screwed to write something if I had to do something there. But like went from there, walked, the handful of blocks over. I had my stuff with me for the game. Yeah. I just went right over to the game. It took forever to get inside because the security theater to get in, to get into the stadium. Like there's a giant pack of people. It's like 10 minutes to 1. Like there's thousands of people still outside the stadium. And then they're like, oh crap, we got to get everybody in. So they're just kind of like, all right, let's hurry up. Let's move it along. Still missed the first pitch, like the ceremonial first pitch, which was really cool because it was Charles Johnson. Thanks. That's great. Wouldn't want to see him. Ben Wallace from the Pistons and Nick Lidstrom from the Red Wings. And then they all invited Then they all invited Miguel Cabrera to come out because Cabrera's retiring at the end of the season. He's got to go to Hall of Fame. Sure. They invited Cabrera out. So all 4 guys doing the ceremonial first pitch, which is friggin' cool as hell, man. I was standing outside waiting to go through the metal detectors while it's going on.
Yeah,
I walked inside. My buddy was like, "Oh, did you see the first pitch?" I go, "No, I didn't see anything." They're like, "Oh, you would have liked it." And I'm like, "Would I?" And they're like, "Yeah." So they show a replay on the screen. I'm like, "Son of a bitch, come on!" Like, couldn't get me inside. Like we see that, the plane flyby goes over while we're outside, and we're just like this. just hurry up with this stuff. Like this happened last year when I took my dad out to Cleveland and Pittsburgh when the Yankees were playing in both places, and it was just stupid long to get through, just getting patted down and walking through, a metal detector. I was like, for fuck's sake, man, come on. Like, how does this take forever? And like, I know some places you don't have a lot of people working there, but like, I don't know, man. I saw like all the people working the booths. There was at least like one or two people behind them just kind of standing around doing nothing. I'm like, can we just hurry this up? Can we just get inside? Like, there's no reason for me to be standing outside the stadium for 25, 30 minutes to go through a metal detector. Like, get real, dude. But yeah, go to the game, hung around for the whole game. Obviously we, a bunch of us like, some went to the store to buy some stuff. Went down to like the lower level to get a look at the field. Cause you just kind of fart around a baseball stadium.
Sure. Yeah.
Got some pictures down there. Like that was neat. And then we walk out and I forget what time it was. It was about like 3:30, 3:40. So the game went quick. First pitch was 1:10. It was beautiful. Like it's pitch clock magic. So I walked down back to the hotel, shower, change, walked my happy ass back up to the arena, get back and I was up on the media level by about 6 o'clock, 5:45, 6, somewhere around there. Couldn't have asked for a better thing. Like for me being a working idiot, in trying to do all this stuff, probably dumb because I wore myself out horribly. But yeah, it's extremely doable. You stay in any of the hotels downtown, you'll be able to walk to any of those places. It's awesome. Detroit is set up really good now, and it's one of the classic Rust Belt cities. You just want to see him come back. You want to see him get better and have it get revitalized. And man, oh man. And like, there wasn't even football going on this time. Ford Field is right behind Comerica Park.
Oh,
like,
really?
That in mind. Like all three places are like right by each other now. So, if ever there's a time when if all four teams could be playing, get the Tigers into the World Series or something, you could have a weekend where you could take in all four teams at once, which would be nuts. But that's now the bar set for me because now I got to try to see if I can do it sometime.
We'll be right back, folks. All right, I am back with Joe Yerdon from Noted Hockey and also Maintenance Day Podcasts. All right, so now you're in Detroit. The game itself, I'll tell you. So I did a show last Thursday night at Imperial Pizza with Joe DiBiase from WGR, and we started at 8. We started taping or streaming, I should say, at 8.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I don't think we could get through 5 minutes of talking without somebody scored a goal. You hear the crowd, yeah, you could hear, a bunch of claps, or you hear some collective groans because it was just such a back and forth game.
Mm-hmm.
What an absolutely exciting game. And I'll tell you, man, if nothing else this year, my biggest takeaway from the Sabres, and we'll talk about hope and progress and all that stuff, this team has been flat out fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of fun freewheeling hockey when it comes to the Buffalo Sabres this year. And I'm going to give them a lot of credit, dude, because I think they had only won 2 of 12 at one point, and this is when they completely kind of fell out realistically fell out of the playoff race. And I remember a couple weeks ago, I admitted this to you on this podcast. They were playing the Devils on a Friday night, and I found myself in a weird position to kind of room for the Devils because I told myself, I'm like, this team's got a better chance of winning the draft lottery at this point than they do making the playoffs. So, you know what? Lose some games there at the end. They've won 6 of their last 8. And now I got a point to sell to. We are taping this Monday afternoon. If you're listening to this in podcast form, the Monday night game against the Rangers is already going to have been played. If you're watching this on video form, this will be dropping on YouTube sometime during probably later into the game. So depending on when you're watching this. But anyway, we're talking before the Sabres even play. But yeah, they've won 6 of their last 8. They've made these fun, I guess, with 4 games left, and it's Dyngus Day.
Mm-hmm.
The Buffalo Sabres are still alive on Dyngus Day. And I'm telling you, man, I've had a hard time remembering the Sabres playing a game that matters on St. Patrick's Day. I compare these holidays like I was jokingly doing earlier in this show. But when it comes to the Sabres, St. Patrick's Day hasn't meant shit in quite a while. Now we're here at Dyngus Day, and these games still mean something. I'm going to put up on the screen here right now, if you're watching on the YouTube side, this is already so no matter how this plays out over the last 4 games, this has been one of the Sabres' best seasons in a decade. They're at 85 points. Was it 89 was the first year that they didn't make the playoffs. They finished with 89. And again, the Sabres still have these last 4 games to go as we're taping this. But I don't know, Joe. I mean, it's one thing to have fun watching the games and be an entertaining brand, but as you can see, they're competitive, and we're not for some better goaltending at points during the season, and certainly playing better at home. It could be talking about a different story right now. But
yeah,
I know your thoughts because this team's just they're compelling. I'm interested with this team, maybe even fascinated to some extent.
it's the first season in a long time. And I don't know if last season kind of applies to that, but like we're at the end, and I'm like, I don't want the season to be over with. Like I've been enjoying this group to watch them so much and to be around them as much as I have. It's a real joy to be around like this group. And obviously I've said this forever. Winning makes everything better. You win games, everybody's happy, everybody's feeling good. It's just the way it is. It has to be a really special, miserable situation to win a lot and have everybody still be mad about everything or mad at everybody else. Like it has that's that kind of thing. But this is it stinks that we're I mean, listen, weirder stuff, but they need some really weird shit to happen to still make the playoffs. Like they're on the precipice right now. Like they need the Islanders, Pittsburgh, and Florida basically lose everything the rest of the way, and then they have to win every game. So
yeah, I'm really I've
kind
got
of the impossible dream, like
I've talked myself out. I mean, no chance of that, but
I
still
think that's safe. But like you watch a game like the Detroit game, and you're like okay. Like the Carolina game was a great. I think that's a great one to hang their hat on because Carolina still had a lot of stuff to play for. They were trying to lock down home ice through the first 2 rounds. Boston's got it locked up through the whole playoff. So like they're not getting it all the way through the East, but first 2 rounds, yeah, that's a big deal because they're duking it out with New Jersey for it. So like they're playing for something, and but Buffalo's playing for their the playoff lives and all that stuff. So like that's a big deal.
They eliminated Detroit too, right? With that win,
I think that officially knocked out Detroit. Yes,
I think that officially knocked out Detroit. By the way, Joe DiBiase bet the under. I just want to throw that out there too. He bet the under in that game. 13 goals, and Joe had the under. It was kind of funny watching it with him.
What was that, like 7.5? I think was.
Yeah.
Line, I think it was.
Yep. He bet the under, so it was. I kind of got a kick out.
Whoops. Let me see. The under was done. In the second period, at the end of the second period, it was already over, and then there was still 4 more goals after that. But yeah, it's like that game was. That game was a special kind of nonsense, really, because they came back, they were down 2-1. Thompson gets that first goal out of give him a millisecond, and he's going to score, and that was that kind of goal. Remember that game? It was kind of up in the air whether he's going to play or not. I don't think he's. Did he skate that morning?
Nope.
I don't think he skated that morning. So yeah,
he did because I didn't think he was going to play after I saw that. I remember thinking that.
And Olofsson was working on one of the power play units, which is usually a tip off that a guy's going to be in, but that with a game time decision type thing, it's different. But so like Thompson plays, then they get down 2-1, they give up a couple goals, and they come right back. They get up 3. They come back and score 3 straight. Which is kicked off by the Yoki Haru goal that started a whole thing where the entire, all 5 guys in the ice for Detroit were pissed off at Jeff Skinner.
Yeah.
And man, oh man, I've never seen a guy before, like NHL level, even college level, like, something like that happens where everybody's just, making a beeline for this guy because they thought he wronged Lucas Raymond at the start of that play. Like they collided it in the neutral zone, looked very accidental. I mean, usually if Jeff does something and it's not accidental, it's kind of easy to tell. That one looked like it was pure accident. They fall on top of each other, and Raymond's immediately mad about it. And Skinner's just like, dude, like, you saw what happened. Like, this is whatever. So like Raymond's chasing after him. Then they score, Yoki Harrier scores, and Raymond is just going at Skinner, just barking at him. Larkin jumps in, and everybody's just, Henry, and I think it was Casey Middlestat, maybe Tuck, were like celebrating the goal, and they turn around like, hey, what the hell? And they, somebody jumps in and like pushes Skinner away, and Skinner is getting pushed away from these guys. The whole rest of the Red Wings roster is trying to get at him, and Skinner just puts both hands up in the air, celebrating the goal in front of their face. I've never seen somebody do that. Like that is an instant like fuse lighter, like powder keg. Everybody's gonna beat your ass.
I've come to realize, Joe.
Yep, whatever, man.
I've come to realize that if Skinner and Dahlin are two guys that you love, first of all, they're great hockey players.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not talking about the hockey skill part. Okay. Right. You love them the way they play the game and chirp.
Mm-hmm.
You love them on your team. But if like Dahlin or Skinner were Bruins or Canadians or Maple Leafs,
you
would hate them.
Hate them.
You hate to play against those kind of guys. I kind of feel like, do you agree with that, Skinner and Dahlin?
Yeah.
Both of them, that's kind of like,
yeah.
Probably like a lot of the league probably hates these guys. I mean, you love them because if you're in Buffalo and you're a Sabres fan, which I am,
sure.
You love the guys, but you hate their guts. If they're not on the Buffalo Sabres, I'd hate them.
Yeah. With Dahlin, it's more of a recent development, like within the last couple of years, where he just started acting kind of like a shithead, and I say that lovingly. That's not like me being like,
I know what you mean. Everyone knows what you mean. Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Turn it up and, kind of leans the hip in there for a check a little bit, close to when a whistle's got to get blown. Like that's kind of stuff gets people pissed off. It's Marchand-ish. Like right. These guys haven't done anything that's like genuinely dirty. Like they haven't, taken somebody out at the knees. They haven't done anything like that. So
it's a great example, what you just said.
Not Marchand, but like it's close. It's
the player, though.
The same playbook.
How Sabres feel about him, how they feel about Brad is probably how Bruins fans and other fans feel right now about Skinner and Dahlin.
Yeah,
for sure.
And Marchand's an incredible player. People never want to admit that. Like they're just like, that guy sucks. He's a piece of crap. And I'm like, yeah, well, he scored like 30 goals like multiple years in a row. And he does all this stuff that gets everybody pissed off at him. Like people started calling him the little ball hate, which was Pat Verbeek's nickname. And I'm like, it's kind of like the proper heir to that nickname, because he's the same deal. Verbeek fought more people. Verbeek was just a hothead too. But Marchand is just a little bit Kenny Linsman. Could throw that name out from like way back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Nicknamed the Rat. Like it's kind of what he does. But like Skinner, I would probably pay $25 for a Skinner mic'd up. That is just, it's not for public consumption. Just let me hear it. I want to hear what he's saying to guys. I want to hear what guys are trying to say to him. I think Raymond was caught on, on camera lip reading, was like, you're such an effing baby to Skinner for whatever reason. I mean, Skinner complains for calls quite a bit, quite a bit, but he's earned a reputation for diving. So I get it why he doesn't get a lot of calls. I understand, but like I've never seen an entire team go after a guy and not for a dirty hit, like not for like an injurious hit, not any of that stuff. Just guy running his mouth and then celebrates in front of their face, like does that. And then you look over and Casey Middlestat is getting pounded on by Jake Wallman for no good. Like Casey didn't do anything on that play, and maybe he said something, but like Wallman just grabbed him and started pounding on him. And I was like, what's going on here, man? Like the Red Wings just like lost their minds in that moment. It was something else.
I was, we were waiting. I was like, please let me see the replay. I'm like, why is everybody going after Skinner? I would have thought he hit somebody with his stick or did something really
something dirty.
Filthy. He did. You know what my favorite part about that game was? All right, so again, I'm at Imperial Pizza doing the show. Shout out Imperial Pizza. And Joe DiBiase had done the show and he left not long after. And I stuck around, packed up. And I'm watching the end of the game. Obviously goes into overtime and it goes into a shootout. And I'm at that place a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And, the fans are fans. They're all right. It's not the rowdiest bar when it comes to Sabres hockey games. Yeah. But anyway, during that shootout, and this is kind of leads to the Devin Levi factor, the buzz about him, whether he plays out of his ass or whether he's playing shitty, there's just a buzz about him right now, and I don't know. You could just tell there was about 7 or 8 people left at the bar because it was getting near closing time there. And so the shootout happens and Detroit scored on the first shot. The guy beat Levi. I think Tuck got stopped or whatever. But then Quinn scores and then Thompson scores and Levi needed to make the save to win the game. And he did. And the crowd that was at Imperial started going nuts. And I'm like, been kind of a while since I've heard that kind of enthusiasm over a win. And again, this is a team that for all intents and purposes is pretty much out of the playoff race, at this point. And things got to go perfect for them over this last week. Probably, almost certainly not going to happen. But anyway, my point was just the excitement from fans with that shootout and with Devin Levi being on this team now, which kind of leads to the question I was going to ask you. So again, we're taping this Monday afternoon. Certainly seems like Devin Levi is going to play. No idea. Maybe he's going to play great. Maybe when you're listening to this, he just got shelled for 5-6 goals. Who the hell knows? But are you a little surprised that these games that still do matter, because they do matter, that Granado keeps going back to him? Playing him a lot down the stretch. So I remember, if I would ask you this 2 weeks ago, you, Lance, Lazowski, Mike, whoever it would have been that I asked, you probably would have said, yeah, he's probably going to get a game or two. And what this is going to be his fifth start now on Monday night. So, I mean, a little bit surprised that they're going to him a lot, and I'm not complaining. It's certainly not a complaint.
There's a tiny bit of surprise, just because you don't know what you're going to get from him. I mean, it's, I've talked about this all the time. It's a big change. It's a big change going from college to pros. Like that's a big friggin' deal.
And he didn't play for 3 weeks. I need to throw that out there too.
Right.
He went 3 weeks without playing a game before his first start.
Right. Because, paperwork and, all that stuff. Like it just took forever for it to get done and get squared away and, needing to practice, all that stuff. But there are a lot of saves that he's making where you're like, whoa, okay. All right. And then there's some other ones where, if you've watched this team all season, or even if you just watch a handful of games that have come on plays where you're like, I don't know if fill in a name here is making that stop. There are a lot of those kinds of saves that he's making. The Detroit game was just such a bonkers game. Like, I mean, you're going to have games like that in a season. Like it's, I'm not going to fault him. I'm not going to fault him on that. He made, when it came down to crunch time, in overtime and the shootout, he makes a save with like 5 seconds left.
Yeah.
Overtime that it was okay, buddy. Okay, man. You got that one. And then, he gives up the first one in the shootout, but then the next two great saves to win it. So coming up in the moments, any goalie will tell you that all they want to do is just give their team a chance to win and, stop the puck. However you have to do it, stop the puck. And he's done that. I mean, he's done that pretty clearly. I mean, we're talking, what's the fewest? I'm looking at his numbers right now. The fewest shots on goal he's faced in a game was actually that Detroit game, 32. Every other 33 in his debut, 36 against Florida in a game. That's the one that stings, but like you couldn't have asked for better from him.
No,
2 goals against, like, hard game, tough game, and then he faced 34 against Carolina. Like it's not light work, and
no.
You're looking at that those are 3 of those teams are playoff teams, and he's going to get the Rangers again tonight. So, 4 out of 5 teams are playoff teams. Is it surprising that he's getting the call? Maybe, but he's played great and like it's consistent great. Like if he was, if he goes, balls out against the Rangers and he's, you're just kind of like, whoa, okay, great debut, awesome. And then he gets bombed on by the Panthers the next night. Like, all right, well, you don't really have that encouragement, but he played great against Florida. Absolutely great against Florida. The Detroit game, you could be like, well, maybe he's getting a little tired. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that, whatever. You'd think like, maybe it'll be time to go to somebody else on Saturday and right back to him. The tip off
that surprised me.
Right. And there was some disagreement. I say disagreement, and it wasn't like angry disagreement. It was just kind of different schools of mind, because they had a very light practice Friday after they came back from Detroit. And there was a handful of guys that just didn't skate maintenance days. Word up, maintenance days.
Good plug.
Yes,
I
and
bitched at Chris, by the way, last week. He said maintenance day and didn't plug the podcast. I yelled at him.
yeah, it's my bad. I got back on the train there, but yeah. But Levi was one of the guys that had a maintenance day. Word up, follow. And some people thought they're like, well, it's because he played last night. They're going to go with Comrie or Luukkonen, against Carolina, and that'll be that. And I'm like, I don't think so. And I was like, he got the day off because he's going tomorrow. Because otherwise, all the talk they've done is that they want to get him reps. They want to get him as much, practice time as possible, all this. And I'm like, he's getting the day off the day before an afternoon game the next day. Tells me he's starting because they want him to keep just stay fresh because it's a lot of games and in a short amount of time. But it signified to me that they were going to go back to him on Saturday, and sure enough, they did. And so they're still in the race. He's the guy that's kind of keeping him in the race. You're not going to go away from him. I mean, it's tough for the other guys because Craig Anderson's back now, so it's tough for the three other goalies they have. But you gotta he's played too well, and we're like what? Comrie hasn't played in almost 2 weeks. Luukkonen hasn't played in like a week and a half. You're getting up on a time where it's like, well, these other guys are rusty now. They'll get a chance to play once they're officially knocked out, I think. I mean, well, I have to imagine one of those guys is going to play Tuesday night because I can't imagine giving Levi back-to-back games and then, day off Wednesday, and then you got 2 more games. If they're still in it before those last 2 games, they got a really interesting decision to make. I think it's an obvious one. Like they would just go back to Levi, but this is Anderson's last week, probably in the NHL. I think Lance or Greg Wyshynski pointed out that Anderson's family is down in New York with them. So probably going on, probably going to be around for the whole week, just see dad's last run. For months, it seemed like this Ottawa game was going to be Anderson's start, former team, home finale, right off in the sunset. Great story. But if they're still in it, I don't know, man. I don't know. Anderson's been their best goalie all year, but also he hasn't played in weeks since that. The friggin' one of the blowout games they got where wasn't really his fault that they got bombed on. It was just the team letting him down in front of him. But yeah, this is fascinating. It's fascinating to see it play out this way. But Levi's he hasn't been around all season, but everything that he did at Northeastern, what he's done already in Buffalo, you have to say he's kind of earned it, right?
Yeah, he's got that star buzz, man. And it just see with some players in some sports. Look, I'm not saying the guy is going to be the Derek Jeter of hockey by any means, but you just knew Derek Jeter was going to be a star. It's just something about him. I feel the same way about Devin right now. And again, I'm not saying he's going to go win multiple Vezina trophies or anything like that, but he's going to be a star. And going into next year, I'm telling you right now, he's starting the season in Buffalo. I don't give a shit what anybody tells me, including you, Mike, Lance, whoever. I don't care who it is. Dude is going to be in Buffalo. First of all, he's the best goalie in this organization right now, period. Mm-hmm. And it would be a PR disaster for him to not start the season in Buffalo, especially if he continues to play the way he is right now. We'll spend some time over the next couple of weeks talking about the goaltending situation because I do think it's going to be fascinating to see over the offseason how things play out. I know Anderson's going to retire, but what happens with UPL and Comrie? By the way, I said UPL, not Olmark, for the first time on this show in like a month. So all credit to me for that. The one other guy I wanted to hit on with the Sabres, you've been banging this drum with this guy for a while, so I'm going to give you a lot of credit for it, man. I have not. I remember early in the season, a lot of people talking about kind of how we are, where we're at now with Olofsson, just, bench the guy, put him in the press box. Mm-hmm. A lot of people were talking about Casey Middlestat deserving to be scratched. He wasn't doing shit, even though that wasn't completely true early on. It just, numbers certainly weren't reflecting it, though. But this guy has been really good. I think, and again, Skinner and Darlene and Tage and Tuck, those are your star players, whatever. Cousins has emerged. But one of the best developments of the season for the Sabres is Casey Middlestat. He's up to 53 points, 41 assists. He's very solid on long term. I'm talking about on that third line. Who knows who will play with next year? But anyway, again, if you're in this organization, you got a lot of confidence in Casey Middlestat, man. This kid is really, really come on.
It's something else because before this season, I'm counting up the numbers. I think he had 85 career points going into the season, and now he's up over 130 career points by having 53 this year. He's tied his career high in goals for a season the other night because he's up to 12 now. So when you pick a guy 8th in the draft, the expectations are super high.
Sure.
That's just natural. Although when you look back through Sabres draft history at guys they've taken at number 8, maybe not so great because 2 of the other ones are Alex Nylander, Rasmus Ristolainen. So I would argue that the bar is set kind of low from that side of things. But for Casey, man, it's impressive. I don't think there's an appreciation for how hard he works. Because when you watch him, you watch him play, everything just seems kind of, there's not like that outward, visible effort where, sometimes you'll see a guy run through the wall to hit somebody and you're like, oh yeah, that guy's trying. Oh yeah, he's killing it. Or you hit a slap shot 110 miles an hour and you're like, oh yeah, that guy wants it bad, or, mixing it up after whistles and just being like, oh, this dude really needs it. That's not the sort of guy he is. It's not the sort of player is, but man, he is. And Granato said this multiple times when we've all asked him at different points, what's changed with Casey? And he's like, I hate the phrasing, but he said it's the competitive level. And he is a ruthless competitor, just an absolutely intense competitor. He wants to win everything he's doing. I mean, what was it? There was a video that showed, it's a silly video, but it was Dahlin and Middlestat. They've been buddies forever. They used to live together, for a couple of years. And they were playing some goofy, putting, gator putting game. It's one of the silly in-between period videos. And both of those guys are intensely competitive, especially against each other. And Middlestat was just roasting him. And Middlestat's basically a scratch golfer. He's an incredible golfer. So he was just roasting Dahlin. And this is goofy, toy putting stuff, but he's just killing Dahlin on this stuff. And he's just like, well, hey, it's too bad, man. But it's little nudges like that where it's what makes Dahlin mad because he wants to win. But Middlestat's just kind of whatever, man, I'm gonna beat your ass in this, and it's like that. It's sort of like a quiet cockiness, a quiet confidence because he has it. I mean, it's absolutely there, but he's stopped, and it's kind of a page out of the Dahlin book. He's stopped giving a shit what other people think of him. And he hasn't phrased it like that. He hasn't said it that way. It's just, he wants to keep doing better. He wants to keep, and he just keeps doing it. And he's become a guy that's a lot harder on the puck. He's much better defensively. He's a great passer. I mean, you don't get 40 assists in a season while being able to dish it out, but he's a great passer just in general. He's got an incredibly good shot. He just doesn't use it enough. Again, Granato will just kind of be like, man, if you can get him to shoot more, I'll put you on the staff. And I'm like, what's the contract on that? Can I get that to work? But it's just everything he's done has been to shake off how hard it was those first few seasons. Cause it was tough. I mean, it's different coaches, and this isn't just a hanging out Ralph. This was going back to Housley. I think he was here he was definitely here for Phil, but looking back to what was his rookie season? So yeah, it was Phil. That's, you go through a couple of coaches. Obviously Ralph was whatever, but it just, it was tough to kind of break through. But then once Don got in and took over, things started to change with him, and he got very serious about improving himself, diet wise, workout wise, all that stuff. He's cracked down on it in a big way. And then, he gets hurt last season, game 1 of the season, he gets hurt. And it nagged him for months and months and months. And then by the time he came back, you're like, he's not looking too bad. Fast forward to this season, the first maybe month and a half or so, maybe 2 months, very hot and cold, extremely hot and cold, where, there was a point where we were throwing Victor and Casey in the same boat going what are they going to do with these 2 guys?
Right.
They're both playing terrible at 5-on-5. How's this going to work? They add Tyson Jost and things started to turn around a little bit there, but Casey got his confidence under him. And when you play with confidence, you play better. But for him, the talent's been there. It's just about focusing it and getting, bearing down and getting ultra serious about it. And he has 100%. And it shows in the results because, you start thinking about, you lose Tage Thompson for a few games and you're just like, oh, geez, well, season's over, pack it in,
Mhm.
game over. Middlestat jumps into that role with Skinner and Tuck, and they were immediately pretty good. Like obviously you lose the goal scoring threat without Tage there, but Tuck stepped that up. Skinner stepped that up.
Yeah.
Middlestat's distributing to him, and they're things are kept kind of going. And now Tage is getting a little bit of a rest from having to play center, playing on the wing, and that's working really good because it's gotten Cousins back going again. It's got Jordan Greenway playing well. It's these little things that go where it just gives guys a lift. And for Middlestat, this is not necessarily a reward for the work that he's done, but like this is what he's earned. He's earned that shot. I mean, you tell people 3 months ago that like Thompson's got to get hurt and Middlestat's going to take over. They're like, well, where in the top 5 are we picking in the draft? That's what everybody would say.
Yeah.
But it's been really good. He's played really well. And now you're in a spot where you're looking at it going like, well, they're gonna have to find a way to like kind of trade him for like maybe a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick. Now you're like, is this guy has he made a case to stick around with the rest of this group for the next few years? Like that's the spot that they're in with him, because you see the guys doing well in Rochester, you see Kulik doing well, you see Savoy doing really well in juniors, and you start thinking about like, well, whose spot are they going to take in the Sabres lineup? And it was pretty easy to circle Middlestat and Olofsson and Pozo, because he's maybe he moves on, maybe he retires, who knows. But you start circling these spots, and now it's like you're not circling Casey anymore because because it's hard. It's 50 points in a season is hard to get. Yeah. Look back in some of these previous seasons. Now, granted, the league is a little different, so whatever. But 50 points in a season would probably make him top 2, top 3 on the team in scoring. Like, like it's that kind of thing. And, not being, he's not a defensive liability anymore. So like, this is turning into as good a development as you can find with him, because I mean, just like a couple of years ago, maybe even before this season, people were thinking like, well, it's the first rounder they missed on, punt on it, forget it, just add it to the list. Now it's like, well, he's a pretty good NHL player now. So, he's not, maybe he's not what you expect out of a number 8 pick in the draft, but I don't know, dude, he's working him up pretty well on the top line on one of the highest scoring teams in the league. So seems good to me.
Hockey's not like football. I've learned that, man, where a lot of these young guys, man, you got to give them some time to develop. Yeah, when it comes to Casey Middlestat right now, I'm like, he's either going to be a good third line forward for this team, or he's a legitimate good trade chip. If you're going to if you're thinking about making a major deal, everyone wants to deal all of a sudden. Well, what are you going to really get for him? You know what I mean? Like Casey Middlestat could be the centerpiece or a big part of a potential blockbuster deal at some point. I'm just saying, well, minus a miracle, next week we'll be putting a wrap on the Sabres season here. Before we get out of here, a couple minutes football talk. Odell Beckham Jr., 1 year, $15 million guaranteed, up to $18 million with Baltimore. What's going on there, man? It's sure you don't make that move if you don't plan on having Lamar Jackson be your quarterback this year. I would have bet about a couple weeks ago, I would have bet that Lamar was probably gone, but now I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm glad the Bills didn't sign him, by the way. I don't think he would have been worth that money. So I got no issue with Buffalo not paying that. That's outrageous money. I mean, a lot of people around the league really surprised that he got that much money, man.
It's isn't the Jackson situation kind of like a Aaron Rodgers light sort of thing, except Lamar hasn't been a weirdo about it for years.
Sort of, yeah.
They haven't really given him a lot of weapons to work with, I mean, there's been a lot of injuries and stuff that's held them back, but there hasn't been like a big receiver there or huge running back for him to work with. There isn't any of that stuff there. It's just been like Lamar
are the best receiver he's ever had now. Even if Odell is not what he used to be, which Word on the street is he doesn't have that juice that he used to, but he's still going to be good. And Bateman's pretty good, and they got Andrews, so there's some weapons now for Baltimore.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just weird to me because I thought that I thought that they might have traded him. Now maybe who knows? Maybe he signs the tag ultimately, and they revisit it in a year.
yeah.
I don't know, man.
Then again, maybe that's why it's only a year for Odell, because they're like, well, he's like, I'll sign that tag. I'll be around for a year. Then see ya.
I have a strong feeling that nobody offered him within I'm talking millions of dollars, not like $1 million or $2 million. I'm talking like $5 to $7 million more in Baltimore than he would have gotten anywhere else.
Isn't that kind of stupid though? Like, this dude won MVP just a few seasons ago. Like, he's great. I mean, injuries are an issue, but like, for people to be like, I don't think he's worth it. I'm like, and you look at who the quarterbacks are and some of the executives that are saying this stuff, and you're like, really? You don't want that guy? Like Atlanta coming out immediately being like, no, we're not going to pursue him. Like, you really? That you're that team. You're going to say no to him. Okay. Sure thing, guys.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Carolina did too. Like, just get lost.
I'm surprised. I mean, I don't know. We're not inside, team boardrooms, and who knows in terms of guarantee money that he might be looking for, because he does have an injury. I mean, you can't discount that. I mean, it's pretty significant, but yeah, I'm surprised that there's not more interest around the league, or maybe there isn't. We just don't know about it. A lot of times nothing happens, and then boom, out of nowhere, something, major happens. I want to pull up before we get out of here. Our friend Joe at Buffalo Wins on Twitter is back on Twitter, by the way. His hiatus, his Lent break is over.
Lenten hiatus, yes.
Always one of my favorite times of the year is when Joe disappears on Twitter for a good month. But he put up something on Facebook, and just want to get some quick thoughts from you on this. And again, with the Sabres ending now and the draft coming up, we're going to start to shift more towards more football talk on here in the weeks ahead. But Joe put up this take on Facebook. He says, I know there's still some time left, but the Bills offseason has been, as the kids say, mid. Some okay-ish signings, but nothing that will make me say they can overtake the Bengals and Chiefs. The Bills, to me, aren't better than what they were last year, and that's what I keep coming back to. Maybe they'll add a stud in the first round who can contribute right away, but their rookies tend to ride the pine more often than contribute that first year. What are your thoughts on that? I half agree. I think half of what he says is right, and half I don't. And I want to get your opinion, because that's a pretty strong take.
Yeah. I mean, Joe never comes weak with the takes. First off.
No, he doesn't. I'll give him credit for that. Whether he's incredibly right or absolutely talking out of his ass, he's going to say what he feels. There's no doubt about that. So I always give him credit for that. But I don't know. What do you think about that statement?
I think I would hope that everybody knew they weren't going to be able to make a big splash free agent signing.
Right.
I would hope everybody understood that, because there was huge questions as to how many of their own guys they were going to be able to retain, never mind add. And I know they carved out some salary cap space, which, you can do that in the NFL, but I don't know. It looked like they addressed a lot of depth parts, because they know where a lot of the weaknesses are, or where potential weaknesses may pop up. Certainly defensive backfield's one of them. You can't not prepare for that now after what happened last season. But they, I don't know if they really. I think if you were going to hit anything really hard on the Bills side of things, I would think it would have been O-line, and maybe somewhere in the front seven, or the traditional front seven on defense. But I mean, they had really gone hard on that. So I kind of agree. Like, it's not eye-popping. Maybe it's one of these things where you get these guys in here and like it just solidifies everything. And you're like, okay, good. We got this square. This is nice. And you're relying a lot on guys who were hurt last year to come back and be close to or at what they were before. Certainly with Hyde, I think, Trey White, you're hoping, a full off season to work out and everything will be good for him. And you're kind of hoping that a lot of the guys that were really good last year can come back. Von Miller, you're hoping for him to come back, same as he was. And a lot of the guys that played well, you want them to like repeat that, which, we know in the NFL, it's not always going to happen, but I don't know. I get caught up because this is a team that was so good last year. They were what, 14-3, 14-3,
13
13 and
3.
13
They're
right.
13-3. Yeah, they had the
So,
postponed game.
but still,
And they lost those games by 8 points, Joe. All three of
Right.
those losses, 8 points combined.
right. And I'm sure there have been statistical breakdowns that show, like, maybe some of those wins could have been lost, whatever. It's in the
Right.
end, the box score says they went 13-3, and that's what counts. So they're still a great team. And maybe you don't need to tweak a team that's like that. It's a lot harder when you've got Cincinnati and Kansas City in your conference, and you can not make the AFC title game because you run into one of them beforehand. So like there's that part of it too. But I don't know. It's very confusing for me with the Bills because yeah, they're gonna be really good again, and you just need. I don't know. It's easy to say, well, they just need to do these things, but I think there's some question as to whether or not you can have faith that they'll be able to do those things again. And I think maybe that's more where that kind of opinion comes from, because you're just like, they went big last year, they signed Von Miller, and they fell short. And it's like, well, freak things happen, whatever.
Right.
They go kind of soft with it this year, and you're like, nothing's impressive, but no. Maybe everybody, the guys that you need to come back healthy do, and the guys that you counted on to be big players last year, can do that, and they can block for Allen a lot better than they did for the second half of the season last year. It's a lot of ifs, but there's no guarantees in the NFL.
No.
There's zero guarantees in the NFL. So to me, if you tweak too much with a team that does that well, you're kind of playing with fire. But unless there's obvious problems, which for me, for Buffalo, the obvious problem was the O-line. But there's only so much you can. I don't know how much was out there free agency wise, but there wasn't. They weren't in a spot to be able to splash a lot of money for that either. So I don't know. I think it's very cautious pessimism on Joe's part, which is a weird phrase. Because he'll go hot take and just start saying, this team's done, forget them. But I can understand anybody, whether you're an optimist or a pessimist on this team, being very cautious about it either way, because I look at them and I go, they could be really good, they could be the best team in the NFL, or they're gonna come back to earth a little bit and they're gonna struggle, and suddenly you're looking at maybe not a shoe-in to win the division. Maybe they're gonna run into Cincinnati or Kansas City in the first round, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, what the hell do you do then? But I don't know, man. We're talking about this in the beginning of April.
I know.
Let's see what happens after the draft. Let's see what comes away there.
I knowing Joe well enough, I know he thinks that the salary cap is a complete myth, and no matter what Brandon Beane said, I think in part he comes from a place where saying they could go get themselves a Von Miller type every year. They could go trade for DeAndre Hopkins right now, despite what the cap looks like. They could make a big move. They could trade for Dalvin Cook, James Cook's brother, something like that. That's what I know he's come from. And again, I agree with his first sentence and his last sentence. Rookies tending to ride the pine more often and contribute their first year with the Bills is accurate. I think in part, at least, that's because they also draft at the end of the first round. So, rookies tend to be brought along slower. Plus, he's also going to a team that's good. So you don't got to throw a guy in there. No disrespect to your squad who's on the come up now big time. But Detroit picked 6th in the draft and 18th in the draft. They're 6th damn right now. They should get 2 starters, assuming they don't take a project quarterback, to develop. Point being is that you're more likely to play when you're a top 10 pick, a top 15 pick than you are 27, 28 in the draft. I think any position that they draft at, even wide receiver right now, except for middle linebacker, if they were to take Jack Campbell or Drew Sanders, I think that's your day one starter. But any other position on this team, first round pick is not going to be guaranteed to start because there's not a lot of starting jobs open right now on the Buffalo Bills. So I do agree with him with that, but for, I think, a different reason. And him calling the free agent period mid, off the offseason so far mid, I do agree with that as well. I do think they upgraded at wide receiver in terms of depth. They lose Beasley and Brown, who are way, way past their prime. And McKenzie, who was good, but like incredibly maddening, inconsistent. Made a lot of mistakes. Let's just put it out there. Trent Sherfield's a good player. I like Deontay Hardy. So they've added to I think they've upgraded there. I think they've upgraded somewhat at guard. Anyone's going to be better than what Roger Saffold gave them last year. They're running it back on the defensive line. They lose Jermaine Evans, and that's big. So yeah, free agency's mid. But what I don't agree with, overtaking the Bengals and the Chiefs. You know, the Bills, when he says the Bills aren't better to me than what they were last year, I don't agree with that at all, because it's not because of who they added, but you hit on some of this. You get Von Miller back next year. You didn't have him at the end of last year. You got Micah Hyde back. You did not have him pretty much all of last year. You at least get a fresh start with Jordan Poyer, who was a wounded warrior by the end of the season. You got Trey White, who should be night and day better this coming season than he was last year. He was just not nowhere near 100%. So you got a lot of good players that you expect better health from going forward. This team is right there right now with the Bengals and the Chiefs. You got to just play better. Again, they lost 3 games by 8 points. There's a bad taste in our mouth because of how badly they got beat up by the Bengals in the playoffs, and I get it. I would say right now the Bengals probably are the better team, but the Bills are right there with the Chiefs and the Bengals. I never came into this offseason expecting them to, have to do some kind of overhaul. You said it, the word tweaks. They've made some tweaks, and they still might make some more tweaks. I don't know. So
you're going to hate this comparison, but it reminds, because I'm a hockey brained person. The Bills situation reminds me a bit of what it is for the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. Although,
agreed. For the most part,
the bar for them is to get out of the first round of the friggin' playoffs.
Right.
It's different bar, but like the goal is the same. Like it's
agreed. Talent all over the place. They should be better. You're 100% right. People ain't gonna like that shit, but you're right.
Right. But last year they lose in the 7th game to Tampa Bay. And people are, it's like the third, 4th year in a row they lose in the first round. I think it was 2nd year in a row they lost to Tampa. It was Montreal before that. It was a weird season, but it's 7 games to a team that that ended up going to their 3rd straight Stanley Cup final, who has all that experience, all that stuff, and you're just kind of like, and everybody's like, they gotta tear some of this part, don't they? Because it's clear none of this is working. Like they keep losing in the first round for XYZ reasons. And the big thought from everybody was like, no, they're really close. Hold it together. They're really close. They'll be back there again next year. Well, they are. They're going to be playing Tampa again in the first round. They're going to have home ice for that whole series. So there's no excuses. And if they don't do it, then there's going to be a lot of changes there. I think the Bills might be in a similar position this season where, it's almost all the same guys. You have all the same great players. The great players are still there.
I agree.
And, guys coming back from injuries, whatever. But if they fall short again, because listen, everybody in the AFC is trying to catch up to them and Cincinnati and Kansas City. So free agency is nuts in the AFC. So everybody's trying to get better. Miami and the Jets are probably going to be better. All these things, we've talked about this 1,000 times. So it's going to be harder from those teams from behind are going to be pushing it a lot harder, but you have more talent than them. You are better than them. Just beat them. Easy enough to say, but you're one of the 3 best teams in the AFC. You got to break through at some point. You can't just keep saying lost to them again. Oh, well, they beat us. Oh, what can you do? You can't keep saying that every year and keep kicking it down the road. And then suddenly you're looking at Allen being 10, 11 years in the league. And you're like, wow, we didn't do shit with him. What did we do wrong? And then it's very easy to see looking back.
You know what? I hate the comparison, but I think that you are absolutely correct. There's no excuses. And Brandon Beane's not going to be in danger of losing his job if the Bills fall short again. I don't think Sean McDermott is getting fired if the Bills fall short again. But there's going to be a lot of fans publicly showing their disapproval of what is going on if they can't get past the divisional round. And put it this way, and this is how we'll end it for this week anyway. you got the draft coming up in a few weeks. And then after the draft, you got about a week or so where there's a handful of decent name free agents that are still out there that a lot of teams say, I want to see what happens in the draft. And if we don't get what we want in the draft, we'll turn back to you. So roughly like a week or so after the draft is usually for the most part when the offseason's over in terms of teams adding, players. I'll bet you anything you want to bet right now. The Bills at worst are one of the top 5 betting favorites to win the Super Bowl when this process is over after the draft.
Oh yeah.
They'll be in the top 5 for sure. So
They have to be, I would think.
yeah, there's pressure. There's no question about it. Again, maybe Bean's job's not in jeopardy. Maybe McDermott isn't. But there's definitely pressure on this team. And we'll talk about that, like I said, in the coming weeks. Draft's coming up in a couple weeks. Make sure that you subscribe to Joe's Noted Hockey. It's notedhockey.substack.com. Just $5 per month, $50 per year. Can't go wrong with that. Check out Maintenance Day Podcast. Joe and Lance Lazowski from the Buffalo News every week breaking down the Buffalo Sabres and hockey around the league. Thanks, buddy, man. This was fun. I'm a little bit envious about your Detroit trip. Maybe I'll kind of book something like that myself someday. Go see multiple shit in 48 hours, 24 hours.
Yeah. Listen, it's a tiring day. It's a long day, but it's worth it to do it. To see 3 major league sports in one day or in a day and a half, pretty great.
Yeah. All right, guys, I will be back with another episode, Bills Mock Draft version 4 with my buddy Aaron Quinn tomorrow.